What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, letting you guys know what the heck happened at YCS Dallas, Texas. And this was, Spyral dominance aside, actually a very compelling and interesting event. For starters, I'm just gonna go ahead, spoil it. Spyral's obviously won the tournament. Who couldn't have predicted that? That was on everybody's projections. I'm pretty sure that most of you guys, like myself, if you were given the opportunity at the beginning of the tournament to take Spyrals or the field, and for those of you who don't know betting terms, the field means you get every other deck in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh that is not Spyrals. Every one of us would have been like, we'll take Spyrals instead, because I feel like they went into this tournament as overwhelmingly the favorites. And despite the fact that they had such a big target on their back with people playing the Winter Cherries and the Main and Droll and Lockbirds and stuff like that, I just thought that they'd have the numbers to back up the amount of tops that I kind of expected. Now, I'm gonna just go out and say it right here. I'm not sure that I expected this much dominance right out the gate, because Spyrals are only going to be going uphill. We don't have Tri-Gate Wizard, and there's a couple of other things that are going to improve this deck's, ceiling and whatnot. But guys, the story of this event, in my opinion, is just Spyrals came out just like Zodiac did. 29 out of the top 32 were Spyrals. Holy shit. There were a lot of people saying Spyrals are not going to be tier 0. This is all hype. The deck is not that good. Hand trap stopped it, but you have to think you're not always going to open up with those hand traps, and I believe that it's the most consistent deck in the meta by a significant margin. But there's actually a couple more things that I want to touch on. You guys know that they say that everything is bigger in Texas, and that must definitely translate to the attendance as well, because there was over 1,100 players at this event. I think that the strong attendance numbers for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think Texas is just a good location to have big YCS events, because Texas itself is the second most popular state in the country, so you already have a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players there. It's not that far from California, which is the first, so you have two big states that are fairly close to each other. You also have a bunch of states kind of in the west, like Nevada, New Mexico, and Colorado, Utah and stuff like that. And I think even people from like Washington State might even consider going there. So most of the people in the west are going to travel out to Texas, no matter if it's in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, etc., etc. So first off, really good Yu-Gi-Oh location. It's a shame Konami didn't stream the event. That is unfortunate. I think a lot of people would have watched it. And the second is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first YCS that we've had in North America, well, in the United States, let's say that, in the United States, that we didn't expect Zodiac to win. Like, this was the first non-Zoo event in quite some time, basically since Zoo came out and Raging Tempest was all the way back in February. So this is the first event where people can finally play some other stuff, even though Spyral's obviously dominated, but at least there isn't that automatic, all right guys, so I'm going to be playing 10 Zoo mirror matches, and I think at least, even with it being a new tier 0 deck, for the first event, I think it is at least a breath of fresh air. Now, let's go back to the dominance of Spyrals, and let's break down the top 32, because even though I say this event was kind of routine, we all expected Spyral to dominate. I didn't expect it to pull these numbers in its first event. I would have probably been a little more in a conservative if I was going to make a prediction how many in the top 32. I would have said maybe 20. I felt like Pendulum Magicians would have had a decent showing. That was one of the biggest surprises. Pendulum Magicians absolutely flopped at this event, and that's crazy, because I felt like they were going in with a lot of momentum. They had regional tops. I think like the most recent ARG, they had won, and obviously ARG aren't the biggest events, but they're supposed to have high caliber players. They do really well. The Pendulum Magician deck did really well on the regional circuit. Obviously a very consistent deck. I don't know whether it was the Ash Blossoms or whether Pendulum Magicians just struggled going second. I actually heard that a lot of people were citing Solemn Strike in Spyrals, which definitely can hurt any type of Pendulum deck, because you can kind of ignore the Joker summon, and then when they try and Pendulum summon, you strike them, they're pretty much just donezo at that point if they're going second. Obviously they can't activate their Pendulum trap card, that's like the Scrap Dragon or whatever. The second really big shocking thing coming out of the top 32 was the fact that the second most represented deck was Trickstars. Trickstar players stand up, because this is something that shocked me. But when I really took it into perspective, and I thought about this as I played on my live stream last night. Now, I played against Spyrals with Trickstars, which I won. It kind of dawned on me, like, why does no one play Trickstars? Like, why does everyone just avoids that deck like the plague? I'm not sure if they don't like playing, you know, something that is kind of similar to a burn deck, because Trickstars isn't completely a burn deck. It isn't completely a beatdown deck. I like to call it death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's some weird, just kind of hybrid in between. The only other deck I can really compare Trickstars to is the old Baboon Burn from the GX era. This is actually the Trickstar deck that got top 16. Shout out to Doug Zeef getting the video up. I highly suggest you guys watch this video. This guy was very intelligent, explained all the cards really well, and holy moly, Hand Trap City. I think that with Honest, he ran about 15 hand traps. So you guys remember, like a couple of weeks ago, I showed you that that OCG hero deck that was like 16 hand traps in the meta. We are officially there, boys. Hand trap meta if you want to play against Spyrals. But one of the other reasons that I think that when you really think about it, Trickstar can be a very strong deck is I still believe Trickstar is like the only deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of like Spyrals when they pop off, especially post Tri-Gate Wizard, where it's just almost unbreakable boards with Sleeper, Firewall Dragon, and Tri-Gate. It's way too much disruption. But Trickstars are one of those decks that can just go first and auto win, because you can open with like triple reincarnation or drone and lock with like disturbance strategy, which I don't think is going to be that consistent, but there are going to be those hands with Trickstars where you go first, you don't get hit with an Ash Blossom. Maxi is basically irrelevant against Trickstars. You're not gonna get your you don't end up getting like your light stage hit with you know, a copy of Ghost Ogre, and you basically just win because you go first. Now, yeah, it might be a little difficult going second, but I think that's obviously where the hand traps go in. So Trickstars definitely have, oh my god, this is gonna sound so lame. I was gonna say Trickstars definitely have some tricks up their sleeves, and honestly, no pun intended, I'm making this up all on the spot. I really do believe that Trickstars have been a very undervalued deck for probably the last 3 months or so. In fact, Trickstar Reincarnation, if you look in the secondary market, starting to creep up a little bit, because going into this tournament, this card was actually under this normal price. I had checked it, and I think there were some copies on here for about $15. I was like, damn, dude, when did Trickstars become actually so cheap? And actually, one of the crazier things about this entire event, YCS Dallas, I've never seen anything quite like this. I've played Yu-Gi-Oh! Forever, been playing the game competitively, and definitely kept up with the game competitively since GX, Regional Circuit, YCS Championship, Shonen Jump Tournament. I've never seen anything remotely like this, guys. We had a mirror match in the finals between 2 brothers. Like, what is this? You can't even make this shit up. This is like something out of the actual anime. We had Fasal Khan versus his older brother. I believe it's Imran Khan. I believe that this guy is the younger one, Fasal, because I think I've seen his picture a couple of times on Zodiac. I had no idea the kid was, I guess, like a young Yu-Gi prodigy, but it was a Spyral mirror match in the finals. That was predictable, but between 2 brothers, like little brother v big brother, I just, like, what are the odds, especially out of 1,100 plus duelists? That is absolutely crazy. So, I mean, I think the takeaway from this event is if you had any questions about what Spyral be, tier 0 or somewhere close to that. If you thought that Spyrals were going to be all hype, I think that this pretty much puts that to bed. These are the same exact numbers. The whole 29 out of 32, that's the same exact number that Zodiac launched at, where Rapier was played at 3 and 29 decks out of 32 at the first YCS that Zodiac's premiered at, which I believe was YCS Seattle. I think we got to start questioning Pendulum Magicians, and I don't know if it's the deck's ability to go second, because you have to run all those pendulum cards, and then going second, like, I think Spyrals have way too many disruptive cards. I showed you guys the duel where the guy had like 25 cards playing pendulums, and it's like, yeah, that's fine, but if you have 2 Firewall Dragons plus a Sleeper plus, you know, an Ash Blossom in your hand, like, what exactly is the pendulum deck going to do? You only get 1 pendulum summon, you let the person pendulum summon, then you just Sleeper away, and you Firewall away their targets, and they don't really have anything to defend themselves with. You just kill them at that point. I think that Trickstars are definitely going to be a sleeper deck for this format. Obviously, Spyrals will dominate everything, but you know, if you look at Trickstars and you look at this guy's build, which I highly suggest, I think that this whole hand trap meta is going to become the norm, where you see almost every deck in the meta running 3 copies of Ash Forehead, like the Maxi, which is pretty much a staple. You see 3 Ghost Ogres and everything, and then you probably have 3 more cards that are considered maybe tech. Maybe you're playing 3 copies of Winter Cherries. Maybe you're playing some Cyframe Gammas. Maybe you're out there and you're playing 3 Drolan Lockbirds. But I don't think that the days of just running maybe like 4 or 5 hand traps in the main, that's probably gone, because I think most people are now just focusing around being able to win going first and second, and just being able to stop your opponent or slow them down for a turn. I mean, this has even gone further than what we saw for like the Zodiac mirror matches, unless I'm mistaken. So you guys let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Oh, you know what? There's actually one more thing. Invoked somehow made it to the top. It was actually pretty crazy. I've looked at the deck profile. I believe it was on Simo's channel, and it's just very similar to the Trickstar deck. In fact, I believe that they even coordinated deck building, where it's basically like Hand Trap City, and you know, even Marcelo Burberry, who I believe is arguably the best player on the planet as of right now, who played Spirals and made top 32. If you see him, he's right here on John's channel. I've looked at this deck profile. He even built his deck around going second. So very interesting, and it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be quite a spectacle to see where this format ultimately shapes up. I know people are going to say down with Spirals, but I don't know, maybe something else will pop up in the near future that'll give them a run for their money. Do I think that anything as powerful as Spirals are going to be coming out in the next couple of sets? No, I don't. But I think that still there is opportunity for innovation. And again, this is just the first tournament, so there could be major breaks, or we could just see, you know, 6 more months of Spiral dominance as we saw with Zodiac. Whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, turn on those notifications for daily videos and subscribe if you have not already. And one last thing, guys, I just had to add this in. For anybody who's kind of holding out hope, thinking, Cap, it's going to get better before it gets worse, I don't know, man. I think the guys in the OCG have just lost their mind. These guys have gone completely nuts. Now when they go to tournaments, they just dress up as Spiral monsters because they see Spyral everywhere. I guess they see him in their dreams. I mean, this is making me freak out like Joseph Joestar when he's like, oh my god. Yeah, they cosplay as Spyral at the event. So, you know, maybe this will become us, guys. Maybe in the TCG, we too will go crazy and we will start cosplaying as Spirals when we go to events, because that's all we see around. This is just Spyral at table 1, Spyral at table 399, Spyral at table 500, Spyral at every single table in the event.